I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, Velocities in Music. Today, an album that is so critically acclaimed before it even came out, and so anticipated by fans, that we just had to do it. We've been listening to this one. I've listened to this thing at least 10 times. Bon Iver's second album entitled Bon Iver. Now, this guy just came out with an album a couple years ago. He went into seclusion, made this album. It was a little bit more kind of indie folk, but kind of really dark and moody, and a lot of multi-tracked vocals. That's kind of a Bon Iver's thing. And really, it caught the eye of the indie storm and just rained down Bon Iver. Everyone was all about it, and for good reason. And a lot of people liked it. This guy got a lot of credit and acclaim. I mean, people were talking about how great of a songwriter he is, how great of an artist he is. People are putting him on their favorite artist of all time, and he's only got one album out. Great. So this album comes out really hyped, and I feel like to be honest, I hadn't listened to either Bon Iver album until this came out, and then I went back and listened to both of them and understood, you know, how the sound has progressed. To me, this album is so much. He definitely took the same strategy, the same indie folk kind of, you know, singer making guitar, and then kind of just said, I'm going to take that idea and then run with it. So what you have here is you have these really, really dark moods. I've had multiple people tell me, both in person, the people that I know, and just you folks out there on Twitter have said, have used this exact phrase. This LP has made me feel feelings I've never felt before. And that's something anytime that you have an artist or a band or an album that can do that to you, first of all, don't watch music reviews because they're just going to make you think differently. Enjoy that while you have it. And don't let anybody ruin that, because that's what makes music special. And to be honest with you, I felt that too. And that's the signature thing about this album, I think, is just how mood-provoking it is. But then on top of it, he's throwing all these different variety instruments at you. Saxophone, horns, steel guitar, on top of just, and these vocals that are very, very focused, and a lot of production went into these very, I don't know how to describe the vocals other than just multi-tracked, very front end, right on the tip of the sound.
Actually reminded me a lot of TV on the radio.
Yes, it did.
You had the high falsetto paired right with the really low bassy, you know, kind of alternating. There were a few spots on this album that I was just thinking TV on the radio.
Right.
But you know, obviously with different moods, different instrumentation. Occasionally there'd be some gray area, but yeah, and the thing is, I'm glad that you mentioned, you know, how this compares with 2008's Forever Ago, because I feel like people really have misrepresented that album in a way, because they see it as being this like lo-fi, minimalistic indie rock masterpiece, indie folk masterpiece even. But and I love that album. I really enjoy it. But honestly, it's not as minimalist as a lot of people think. Right away from the first track, Flume, you have those kind of buzzy like string sounds. Like, I don't know exactly what it is, but it sounds like, you know, strings of a guitar just kind of buzzing away in the background. That's not something he needed to put in there. At the same time, though, this takes it a step further in variety of those different kinds of sounds and how much is going on at once. And the thing is, a lot of people are complaining about that. I've read a lot of reviews that people just say the sound is too cluttered, you know, with all this crap going on. And in a way, I could see that, and I partially agree. Mainly just because, not mainly to the extent that he's doing it when he's doing it, but just the fact that he's doing it all the time. I wish
That's the theme of the album.
Yeah, I wish that there were a few spots on here where he would just drop that and make it a little more sincere and forward, because sincerity is what this album's all about. And when it's just his vocals, when you focus on his vocals, it's pulling it off. And so occasionally those sounds distract. Now the thing that I think makes it work most of the time is the fact that they're just mixed so low. I mean, you know, we reviewed a while back Kate Bush's album, The Dreaming. And in that album, every little thing is loud. She wants you to hear it. There's so many things here that are so subtle, you barely even you know, cognitively pick up on them.
Yeah, and that fact brings you back to the album over and over again.
To pick up on those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus, one thing I noticed about this LP, almost all the tracks, the first few times I listened to this, well, first of all, it was on NPR, so it's one continuous stream, and you don't have track by tracks, but I couldn't tell where that one track ended and another track began. I really couldn't. It just felt so natural. Part of that was just how the sound, how he structured these songs. They don't follow a set structure. It's more linear. Well, there might be a reformation of a chorus here and there, but really the songs just kind of go on, and then he starts adding instruments in and out, and the volume goes up and down, and then the next song will start, and you won't even realize it. It's just so natural, and that's something that I have to compliment him, because it makes Bon Iver an album and not just his second record that's a compilation of you know, 10 tracks. And what I really think is that a lot of people are struggling identifying with certain songs, and that's what they have to realize, is that this isn't about certain songs. This is about the entire album, and it's much easier to take down if you look at it as an entire album, one statement, with one exception. I feel like the last track is just hanging out there like just this extra appendage. It's like the
epilogue.
It's like kind of, but the sound doesn't even match the rest of the album.
True.
It's very, and I'm definitely not criticizing this because, you know, it's a very 80s sound. But my point is that it's such a drastic shift in the sound style with that, you know, clunky kind of keyboard 80s sound that I just don't think it flows, it doesn't mesh well, and that was the one instance where I could go, this sounds like an extra song, this sounds like a song change, and I just feel like it could have blended a little bit better than that.
One thing also that does help this blend, while Forever Forever Ago seemed to be more kind of encapsulating a present melancholy that Justin Vernon had when he was writing it.
Right.
This album seems to be more about nostalgia. And it's still got that kind of melancholy to it, but it's more about the past and looking back on good and bad things. And that, I think, really, one thing that really helps to show that is the obvious themes in the song titles, what with all the different locations, because obviously no one can be in those locations at the same damn time.
Right.
So it's like you're referring back to memories that happen in different places, and going along with the more personal but past lyrics.
And he did write a lot of lyrics that are from his past, you know, self-reflection and things like that, and memory based. But here's the thing: if you go read these lyrics, a lot of them just don't make sense. Some of them are great. There's some great lines in there, believe me, and that make the songs better, because when you hear them in connection with the song, especially track 2, Minnesota, Wisconsin, I think that really works well. As you know, he's talking about change, and then all the music starts changing and goes through this random spastic where all these instruments are coming in. I think that that's a cool effect. Now, the general sound, I think that's up to you whether you like it or not. It's the point I'll get to in a second. But overall, I'd say the lyrics are actually kind of hard to identify with personally. They might have meant a lot to him, and if you read into it, those 10% of you out there, Bon Iver fans, who might actually dig deep enough to realize what he was doing in the writing process. But everyone else, and I'll put myself in this category, are just not going to be able to quite as well relate to the lyrics. And it's just because they're so hard to figure out. They're just so random and unorganized, it almost seems like. One thing that I really did want to mention, though, is there is almost no low end in this production. It's very high end. That's something that a lot of people are having a problem with. If you play bass, you probably are going to notice that. You probably will gripe about that a little bit, because honestly, it's a good gripe. This is all focused on the high end and mid-range sounds. And you know, I think that kind of goes with this whole album. This is a very polarizing effort. I feel like people are either loving this thing or they're a little reserved. Personally, I started off loving this thing, then went into just, oh my god, this might be one of the best albums of the year, and now I'm finding things, the more I listen to it, once I get to that 12th, 13th listen, and I've had this thing in my car forever, maybe it's just I'm getting bored with it, I'm finding little nitpicky things I'm not liking about it quite as much. Dropping my score down, I'm going 77 on this one.
I'm going to go 83, I enjoyed this one a lot.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a really good score. I feel like it's getting a little bit too much buzz for what it is. We'll see what this guy can do in the future. What I like about Justin Vernon is that he has the wherewithal to change his sound and to do cool things with his music. He's not going to stay still. And he has a good talent. He has a good songwriting ability. So definitely a guy to watch. I know a lot of you guys are loving it. Score of 80 from VIMTV. What did you guys think? What would you give this album? Is this the best album of the year for you? And tell us why you liked it at www www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and start a conversation. That's what VIMTV is all about. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.